Hello, everybody. I'm Tomoyuki, and I'm back. Your Imperial Knight Scion PNG tuber guy who does retrospective and history videos on Warhammer 40,000. Well, I say Warhammer 40,000, but it's usually about Imperial Knights and a bit of Adeptus Mechanicus. Maybe in future I'll do Solar Auxiliary and Imperial Army / Imperial Guard videos, but I'll think about it when I get there. Anyway, yeah, today's article is on Imperial Knight chassis and their history. As I said, I'm primarily a blogger, so I usually do articles and not videos. Uh, Somehow I'm a PNG tuber now, but that's not really my main thing. So yeah, that's where my blog article is, and if you want to check it out, please do. If you don't, well, that's fine. Just watch this video, I guess, or close the video if you are not really interested in me rambling on for, I don't know, close to an hour or something. Anyway, today we'll be doing on Imperial Knight chassis and their history. So I thought I should do a whole blast from the past thing for Imperial Knights, and I believe I did a historical view of how knights, the law of knights actually developed over the last 3.5 decades. And beginning with their inception in the White Dwarf magazine, 126 in 1990. Sorry, I almost said 1999. I don't know why. Too many nines, I guess. So, and their modern update in the Imperial Knight Companion and the 6th edition codex in 2014. So, and then I also talk about the additions to their line in 2018 when they received their 8th edition codex, as well as the new so-called 3 classes in 2015 with their 7th edition codex, the Warden, the Gallant, and the Crusader, basically. But they are not actually new classes because they were based on the old models, which we will see later because that's what we are doing today. And we also talk about or at least I did, a few of the Forge World Wrestling Knights in 2014 when the Horus Heresy Black Books were released. So for this article though, we'll go into more detail on each of the knight chassis, the lore behind them, and probably when they were first introduced. I'll be doing the modern versions. To be honest, I don't really have the old White Dwarf magazines on hand. So, and even the 126 issue 126 in 1990 doesn't really give much details about the knight chassis themselves, aside from what they are armed with. I'll add what I can though. So depending on what I find on the Noosphere, because NMAC. So yeah, Noosphere. That's what I use. So anyway, we begin with the ubiquitous and most common chassis, the Questoris pattern. So when the modern Imperial Knight Codex was first launched in 2014 along with the miniatures, we had a plastic kit that allowed us to assemble only the Aaron and Paladin variants. This was also the very first Warhammer 40,000 miniature I ever bought, so because Knights became my first ever army for the tabletop. So yeah, I walked into my local friendly gaming store and I saw this box and I was like, hell yeah, that looks amazing. I was actually gonna start with Imperial Guard because I was reading Kafai's K novels at that time, and Imperial Guard was like, my favorite army. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do Imperial Guard. I walked into the store and I changed my mind the moment I saw the Imperial Knight box because uh I watched Gundam too. I'm a fan of mecha. I think I was also playing Titanfall. So, I love giant robots, and so when I saw Imperial Knight, I was like, I knew I had to get that. And thus Knights became my first army, and that's how my blog became at Knight blog, because Imperial Knights. So yeah. Um so yeah, they just look incredible. Anyway, I'll be collating information from the 6, 7, 8 edition codexes because they cut off most of the lore and individual information for the 9 edition. They've been streamlining stuff, the lore and the background detail on 9 edition codexes, which makes me kind of sad. The 10 edition too for AdMac anyway. So it makes me a bit sad. Fortunately, we have a wealth of lore from the earlier editions, as well as the Horus Heresy Black Books. And I think we also have like the Crusade Imperialis, Armilius, and Liber Mechanicum. So fortunately, I have this on hand, so I can actually, you know, get a nice wealth of knowledge. It's a treasure trove of knowledge, like the whole AdMac thing. Anyway, let's get down to it. First, I'm going to introduce the Questoris class knights, which is this guy you can see in the screen. And the Questoris pattern being the most common knight armor map is usually the one piloted by most noble scions of their knight households. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing scions or scions, or I don't know how to pronounce that word. Sorry. Anyway, the noble scions of knight households often reconfigure their suits in a myriad ways with weapon options and hull augments. So the different patterns were given specific names to represent their traditions, lineages, and fighting styles. So I'm gonna first introduce to you the Aaron. So yeah, that's Knight Aaron. Interestingly enough, I think unlike the Paladin, the first version of the Knight Errant appeared not in 1990 but in December 1994 in White Dwarf number 180, issue 180. They were clearly differentiated from the Paladin by sporting a Melta weapon and a Thunderstrike Gauntlet, which distinguished them from the Battle Cannon and Reaper Chainsword wielding Paladin. So yeah, I think they were like almost like 4 years, almost 5 years after the first issue of White Dwarf. It's been a long time, so yeah, they've been doing this. Anyway, uh, like I said, in terms of chassis, they're kind of similar to the Paladin with slight differences. You look at the groin guard. Did I really say groin guard? I don't know what else. I don't know what to call that thing. And then you talk about the hunch carapace. So yeah, those are like similarities between the two chassis. That's why they're Questoris knights. I don't think the term Questoris chassis was a thing back then. They were just called Knight Errants and Knight Paladins, and they didn't really categorize the knights into different classes yet. Well, I mean, these are the classes. So, I mean, in terms of chassis, I mean, sorry. So yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Anyway, this is where the Aaron first came to their own as a specialized knight, I believe, for close range anti armor, as opposed to the more generalist paladin, because this was for epic, for space marine or epic, and they were used to, I guess, you get to fight infantry basically. It wasn't like Adeptus Titanicus where you just fight other knights or titans. You also have to fight other, I guess, infantry and vehicles and walkers. So you kind of need a kind of knight that can deal with infantry and like the generalist purpose paladin, and then you have the dedicated anti-tank like variant like the Aaron. He was also given a command variant, so your HQ or commander or leader or character, depending on what edition you're using, lead your knight army. Now we call them characters in 10th edition, but back then in I think 7th edition, Horus Heresy, they were called HQs. So yeah, I think in Age of Sigmar they're called heroes, right? I'm not very sure. I don't play Age of Sigmar, so sorry. Anyway, the Aaron was I think wait, hang on. No, not the Aaron, sorry. The command variant, sorry. The Aaron was in 1994. The command variant was released in March 1995 in White Dwarf issue 182. So, to be honest, it doesn't really look like doesn't look very different, right? Because they basically stuck a flag or a banner or standard on his back, and yeah, there you go. He's a command variant. All you need is a flag. So it's kind of funny. The Knight Errant actually specializes in close range actions where he can maximize the potential of his anti-tank thermal cannon. So yeah, this is the new one in 2014 when he was released in the 6th edition codex. That's actually the cover for the 6th edition codex in 2014. I think it's March 2014 if I remember, if I get my dates wrong, sorry. But um, the thermal cannon is actually a melta weapon that is capable of melting fortified strongholds or enemy armor alike. So if I'm not mistaken, it used to be a strength 9 weapon. They nerfed it to strength 8 in Horus Heresy 2.0, but yeah, now it's strength 12, I believe. Yeah, depending on what edition. It used to be strength 8 in the last edition or something. Before that was strength 9, so it went through a lot of changes. The thing is that it's still a melta weapon, and it's basically meant for anti-tank, so and they buffed the Melta rule, I guess, so it's now Melta 6 plus. But back then it was just a normal Melta weapon with a higher strength, actually, an AP1. I mean, all Melta weapons have AP1, so what am I talking about? They also have Reaper chainswords, which can churn through ferrocrete bunkers, sorry, and rip open a super heavy barrel tank. So your Bane blades can be cut in half by a Reaper chainsword. They can also swap out the Reaper Chainsaw for Thunderstrike Gauntlet, which allows them to hurl tanks or even rip out components from enemy titans. So you used to have this crazy rule where you can pick up tanks and throw them. It became a stratagem later, but I guess let's not waste too much time talking about how it was. During the Horus Heresy, they weren't that much different, but they were often employed to hunt down and destroy enemy super heavy armor, or the most monstrous of Xenos creatures, and they are actually piloted by the more aggressive Scions. Apparently, they have a high casualty rate because only the most skilled survive for long, which is kind of a ouch. So yeah, that's the kind of Horus Heresy lore for them. Then you have the Paladin. This is you remember this from the first Imperial Knight retrospective video that I did. That's the Knight Paladin from the White Dwarf 1990. The 1990 White Dwarf issue 126. So if you remember, he's yeah, you don't have to remember. You can just see it from here. So you can see that he's armed with a close combat weapon. Is a generic close combat is a generic close combat weapon. I almost said arm. I don't know why, because of the hand right at the corner. So as you can see, is the close combat weapon can be anything from a Thunderstrike Gauntlet to a Reaper Chainsaw, depending on how you assembled your knights back then. It depends on how you, yeah, because you can look, they are all knight paladins, even though the guy on the left is clearly a knight errant. So that actually changed in 1994 when they decided to start distinguishing the knights have their own distinctive patterns based on the weapons they carry. So back then, it doesn't really matter. So what your close combat weapon is. However, no matter what model you use, the weapons are basically a battle cannon. So it doesn't matter if it looks like a melta cannon, that's still a battle cannon, apparently. And of course, they have a shock lance. And again, if you remember my retrospective Imperial Knight article, it's that weird whistle mounted weapon that allows knights to kill with a glance or something. Basically, it shoots lightning from the eyes. So yeah, but yeah. Anyway, you can see the hunch almost beetle back design, as well as the battle cannon and the Reaper chainsaw that would eventually make it to the modern design. So yeah, there are even more variants here, which the one on the left corner, the top left corner is from 1990, 1990 White Dwarf issue. I almost said codex for some reason. Anyway, the ones on the right and I guess the ones in the center, the one on the top right would be actually taken from the 1994 December 1994 White Dwarf issue 180. So that's when they decided to solidify the design in December 1994 issue 180 by distinguishing the Knight Paladin from the Knight Errant so that they can give the weapons more individuality. So the other one, the green Knight Paladins, that's from the 1995 January 1995 White Dwarf issue 181, I believe. That's also when they started giving the command variant, and I guess this is the same thing, the March 1995 again. So yeah, here you see that the Knight Paladin is the archetypical Imperial Knight able to fulfill many battlefield roles, and he's armed with a battle cannon and a Reaper Chainsaw. They no longer spot the Thunderstrike Gauntlet, which would instead go to the Knight Errant. Like the Errant, the Paladin also receive a command variant to lead your Knight army, but again, just like the command Errant, is basically a Knight Paladin with a flag sticking on his back. So yeah. Now, the modern Knight Paladin, which was introduced in the 2014 Imperial Knight Codex 6th edition, that this is where they actually, come up with the modern law. So basically now he's this guy who has a flexible battlefield role with a long range battle cannon, which, it used to be 72 inches, now it's 48 inches for some reason. But yeah, the long range battle cannon provides fire support from afar, and however, he is also capable of fighting in close quarters with his Reaper Chainsaw. He excels in both anti-armor and artillery roles as well as close assault. So he's like this very generalist knight, basically. He can deal with both infantry and tanks, so that's what the battle cannon's for. He's not as good as dealing with armor as Knight Errant, who's like super specialized in that, but he basically can fight almost anything without any issues, any real issues. I mean, during the Horus Heresy, they are known for their rugged dependability and the versatility of their weapons array. They're little different from the ancient war machines used by the first Long March colonies, the only difference being hand forged and intricately embossed armor plating. So those are like, what they gain over time as they become nobles. Apparently, they also, because they have longer range weapons, the scions of Paladin Knights survive longer and have a long lineage. So yeah, so that's kind of the funny thing about the Knight Paladins, and when they add more lore and stuff, like to differentiate the pilots who actually pilot this knights. It's kind of generalist, and to be honest, I mean homebrew, your guys, just you don't really have to stick to the law. It's just more of a broader general thing that the tendencies of certain pilots to, I guess, swing towards specific knight chassis. So, but there are as many individual pilots as there are knight suits. So that's up to you. But yeah, I mean it does matter though. So, I mean, if you're more the aggressive type, you probably prefer Knight Errant to close in and blast things with your melta weapon. So yeah, another thing I wanted to mention was that Verticorda, if you remember Lord Commander Verticorda of the House Tyrannus and Mechanicum. That was Graham McNeil's Horus Heresy novel back in December 2008. He was piloting a Knight Paladin. So his knight suit, blue, midnight blue armor, I believe was a Knight Paladin pattern, if I'm not mistaken. So that's another call back to the past. Because Graham McNeil, I believe, was kind of aware of these different marks of armor, knight armor, and when he started writing, I think, Mechanicum, he had to go back to all the sources and bring them back for the updated Horus Heresy lore, which is really really cool if you think about it. So, if you notice, I've been talking about these modern Knight quest stories patterns as being, coming in the 2014 codex. So, yeah. Then in 2015, we actually had a new updated plastic kit that added a singles new sprue, allowing us to assemble the Avenger Gallant Cannon, Thunderstrike Gauntlet, and Carapace weapons. So, basically, Iron Storm Missile Pod, Storm Spear Rocket Pod, and Icarus twin autocannons. So, these are the new addition for our Knights. Along with this new updated plastic kit, we had a 2015 codex, for 7th edition, because I think 2014 was the last year, the last time we had 6 editions. So yeah, we had an updated codex for the new edition for Knights. And it also added three new classes and expanded our army roster, well, through artificial means, I might add, because for all intents and purposes, they're actually the same unit. They just have different weapons. But this is also a time where you actually want to start magnetizing your knights, because you want to swap the weapons to deploy whatever pattern you want. Yeah. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot about the Melta gun. Yeah. This is where you can start swapping your hull mounted heavy stabber, I believe, for Melta gun. And ta-da! This is the Imperial Knight Warden. So yes, you see the hull mounted Melta gun, you see the Avenger Gallant Cannon, and you see the Thunderstrike Gauntlet, as well as the Carapace weapon. That's probably the Storm Spear rocket pod, according to the Knight Codex anyway, because the big ones are the Iron Storm rocket missile pod. So yeah, but honestly, it doesn't matter as long as your opponent knows what you're talking about. So yeah, that's 2015. And since we're talking about on the topic of the Night Warden, let's talk about the old Night Warden. The Night Warden was unusual in the original 1990 White Dwarf article, in that it wasn't actually it wasn't a different variant of the Knight Paladin, but a totally different design. So yeah, this is basically not a Questoris chassis. It's basically completely different from the original Knight Paladin that we saw earlier. There's also a variant where he's mounted on treads like a tank, so he looks kind of weird. He reminds me of that Gundam guy. Anyway, back then he was armed with a battle cannon, multi-lasers, and you can also see the Carapace missile pod kind of returning, I believe. You see the one at the top left, not the top left. So yeah, but I believe that's where they got the idea or inspiration for the Carapace mounted weapons, and that's why you see most of them is either a missile pod, what was it, Iron Storm missile pod, or a Storm Spear rocket pod. So it makes a comeback here. Somehow it's labeled as a multi-laser here. I have no idea how it works, but 1990s it was a wild time. Anyway, he other than that, he actually looks a bit chunky, kind of cute actually. But if you recall from my previous retrospective video on Imperial Knights, his role is more to guard the drovers and the land of the Night Wolves. Remember, the defend the realm wall. So yep, he's not exactly a frontline fighter. So I guess that's why he didn't appear in 1994 and 1995 when they added the new Knight models to, I guess, Epic Titan Legions and all the other the updated Epic lore. So yeah. The Night Warden himself is kind of armed with an Avenger Gallant Cannon, and this is the modern one. Yeah, this is also the 2015 Codex, by the way, 7th edition 2015, and was also reused for 8th edition. He's armed with an Avenger Gallant Cannon that also has a built-in heavy flamer, making him ideal for anti-infantry roles. Although he can also perform well against light vehicles because they are like strength 6, I believe, AP3 rending. Now they're AP4 in the they are nerfed to AP4 in the Horus Heresy 2.0 because we can't have them killing Space Marines for some reason. They still keep rending though, so she can perform well against light vehicles, like I said, like tanks. Like the Knight Errant, the Knight Warden usually engages enemies at close quarters. Because it's 36 inches, it used to be the same range as the Thermal Cannon. Now the Thermal Cannon has been nerfed to 24 inches in 10th edition, but yeah. Anyway, he's developed from the ubiquitous Questoris chassis, so he's basically almost the same as the Paladin and the Aaron. But the Warden variant is well suited to hunting deadly prey, like the macro predatory fauna in the Colossal Forest and jungles or night wolves or monstrous horrors that feed on the house livestock. So this is like a callback, a nod to the old law in the 1990 White Dwarf issue where Wardens are piloted by steady scions of proven metal and trusted by their house masters. This allowed them to be adept in genocidal expeditions and in operating in the relatively tight confines of layered fortifications and hive city roadways. So basically urban fighting. So they are basically the knight you want, the knight chassis you want if you're going to urban warfare. So hive cities, for example, I think they're very popular. The knight wardens are very popular in hive city battles. The next chassis is basically the Knight Gallant. So the Knight Gallant is usually piloted by the most reckless and combative of nobles, equipped exclusively for close range combat. Some even eschew the hull-mounted heavy stabber for Meltagun, making them even more close range because heavy stabber is like 36 inches and Meltaguns are 12 inches. So yeah, that's the range. So that if you want to make him like a close combat monster, you can do that. Aside from optional carapace weapons, the only weapons they have are basically close range weapons because they spot both the Reaper Chainsaw and the Thunderstrike Gauntlet. In crunch terms, that means you get a bonus melee attack for dual wielding. And you are playing from 8th edition onward, that it means that you get a 2-up weapon skill. However, the Questoris Knight Gallant is seen as inferior to the far swifter Cerastus Knight armors, which are also close assault specialists. Given their complete lack of invulnerable save in close combat, I would say that's kind of true, I guess. I guess they're more of like a glass cannon, basically. They're still pretty good in combat, so not gonna lie. Weapon skill 2 up, 5 attacks. Yeah, they're pretty good. The next one we want to talk about is the Night Crusader. So those guys look kind of funny, right? Well, that's because this is the version that first showed up in 1994, White Dwarf issue 180, December 1994. I think they showed up alongside the Aaron actually. So remember the Aaron from earlier? So they showed up at the same time. And interestingly enough, you can see that they are pretty much a dedicated range unit with no close combat weapons. So no Reaper Chainsaw, no Thunderstrike Gauntlet, or whatever close combat weapons they called it back then. Apparently, I think what they are armed with are twin las cannons and a long-range macro cannon that's capable of destroying armor from afar. That's what I can find when I search through the Noosphere, but the White Dwarf issue itself doesn't actually specify their armaments. Not that I can find anyway. It's probably in the Epic Titan Legends rulebook, I guess, so which I don't have, unfortunately. But if you remember that when I mentioned about him in the Imperial Knight companion book, or video, he's mentioned as a ponderous heavy weapons platform in 2014. But then they retconned him into a Questoris chassis with just 2-arm mounted range weapons. So yeah, the Knight Crusader used to be a separate knight class, and back then I don't think the term Questoris ever came to play in the modern 41st millennium. So I think that was kind of reserved solely for Horus Heresy fluff, especially in the Black Books, to differentiate them from Forge World's Resin Cerastus Knights. However, when the 7th edition codex dropped in 2015, they retconned the Knight Crusader from a supposedly heavy and ponderous guns platform to a Questoris Knight chassis armed with 2-arm mounted range weapons. So basically, your choice of whether you want an Avenger Clan cannon and the Thermal cannon, which can be swapped for the longer range rapid fire barrel cannon. So whatever flavor you want, whatever flavor of long range weapons you want. I mean, they're still technically a heavy guns weapons platform, so the old law wasn't exactly lying, but they're definitely not that much slower or more ponderous or more heavily armored than their other Questoris cousins. So yeah, it's definitely a retcon. And again, you can just for long range stuff, especially you're mounting the rapid fire battle cannon, you put the Iron Storm missile pod, both of which are 72-inch range, and it's a barrage weapon, I believe. Yep. Apparently, they only became widespread during the Great Crusade because of the necessity of engaging alien armored forces and the technological prowess of deviant and renegade human factions. So, as a mobile weapons platforms, the configurations pairing the Avenger Gatling Cannon and Thermal Cannon provide directed and close range fire support to break on rushing armored advances, often serving on the flanks of their lance formations. They are piloted by veteran warriors of long service, those who prioritize the protection of their comrades and the attainment of strategic objectives. So this is like the kind of lore behind the kind of pilots who pilot them. As said, these were the most common patterns fielded by the knights houses of the Questoris Familiar. During the Horus Heresy things, I think during the Horus Heresy things were almost identical. In Horus Heresy Book 3, Extermination, I think it borrows from both the 6th edition Imperial Knight Codex and the Imperial Knight Companion when they talk about the chassis. So we have a brief explanation about them, predating both the Imperium and the Mechanicum, making use of mind impulse systems. They continue to be replicated, manufactured, and maintained by standard template constructs. And nearly all knight households, known formally as the Questoris Familiar, because this is a Horus Heresy term and doesn't actually show up in modern 40k lore. In modern 40k, we just call them Questoris Imperialis or Questoris Mechanicus. So yeah, instead of the Familiar. So yeah, Night Wolves usually have ties of fealty to the Mechanicum, and you can see here, Questoris Familiar. They are closely linked to the Mechanicum, and but their feudal dynasties retain high degrees of political and military independence. So yeah, the most common patterns, of course, are the Knight Paladin and Knight Errant, because back in 2014, this was the only plastic kit available. With the new plastic kit in 2015, suddenly the other configurations just became just as common. You gotta love these retcons. However, I think there are a couple more Questoris patterns that are considered more esoteric and extremely rare, especially because they are largely fielded only by Mechanicum indentured knight houses. The Mechanicum are the only ones who possess access to such lost sophisticated technology. So these kind of, I guess, Mechanicum stout knights they house relic devices such as dedicated repair auto simulacra. That means it will not die, or they regain a hull point every turn or something like that. On a 5-up, I believe. And ionic flare shields, which makes them tougher. I think it reduces blast and template the strength of blast and template weapons or something. And the strain placed upon their automatic reactors, because they use the same technology as Legio Cybernetica automata, so automatic reactors. They end up causing more catastrophic internal explosions. That's why you have the overtaxed reactors rule that make your explosions bigger. Anyway, I guess what we have here are the Mechanicum Knights. The Mechanicum Questoris, Knight Margaera, and Styrix patterns were released by Forge World near the end of 2014, if I remember correctly. So again, all of this is stuff I had to research by dredging through the noosphere or internet for you 21st century folks. So yeah, I could be mistaken. I'm not a very reliable historian, sorry. Anyway, there are rules in Horus Heresy Book 4, Exclamation, which was published in November 2014, along with rules on how to fill a Questoris Knight Crusade army. At the same time, the hybrid resin plastic models were sold on Forge World, so they make use of plastic components from the original Questoris Knight kit, and they combine it with resin parts for the more esoteric weaponry and Mechanicum Heri-style plating. So you'll notice that their carapace, their kind of like beetleback carapace, is different from the usual plastic Questoris carapace. So the first we have of these Mechanicum stout knights is the Questoris Knight Margaera. He's most often used as a shock assault unit, breaching heavily defended enemy positions while shrugging off heavy weapons fire and self-repairing, even devastating weapon strikes in a few minutes. They armed with a lightning cannon that uses focused electromagnetic beams to vaporize infantry and blast apart armor. So it's a forward branding. So yeah. They also have Sage Claws that can breach even the strongest enemy fortifications, so that's really cool. I think there's an Erect Cleanser as well installed inside the Sage Hackathon Sage Claw. Then you have the Styrix. So the Questoris Knight Styrix is a meticulously designed chassis to efficiently eradicate infantry formations and supporting vehicles. His graviton gun pins targets in place while sighting Wokite beams and flash boiling red cleansers wipe them out. So the Wokite weapon is actually a Wokite Chiroval? I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that right. But it's bigger than even the Wokite Culverin, so cool. Or the Wokite Whalglia? I don't know how to pronounce that again. Used by the Army Rex variant. The Wokite Chiroval, or whatever you call it, allows him to punch through even armored tanks with ease, Even though it was somewhat nerfed in the Horus Heresy 2.0 because we can't be slaughtering Legionis Astartes in the era that's known for them. It used to be AP3 or something, AP2 or AP3, I can't remember. Strength 8 AP2 or Strength or AP3, and then they nerf it to AP4 now because you need to make power armor units more survivable in Horus Heresy 2.0 apparently. Well, anyway, 2018 also saw the release of yet another updated plastic kit, which added a whole new sprue for the last impulsor and the pilot and his drone mechanicum, which allowed you to build Sir Hector Cerebender as well. And also a multi-laser, so you can swap your Melta gun or Heavy Saber for multi-laser now. Yeah, which allows you to, build your Knight Preceptor. Pretty cool. Thus, the Questoris Knight Preceptor was an all-new unit that also apparently gave you bonuses when fielding him alongside armigers. So what exactly is the Knight Preceptor? The Questoris Knight Preceptor is designed for close-range combat because he's armed with a Reaper Chainsaw or Thunderstrike Gauntlet, and you pair that with a Less Impulsor. So what is a Less Impulsor? A Less Impulsor is a laser cannon that cut off even Titan's limbs or penetrate enemy fortresses in a single concentrated salvo. Then you have capacitor shrines, I guess, building up energy before unleashing a devastating volley of laser blast that can strip shields and punch through thick armor or chitin. So usually the Knight Preceptor is piloted by grizzled veterans in charge of training squires on how to pilot knights. Most commonly bondsmen piloting armigers before these young lads are elevated in rank to pilot bigger knights. So yeah. And by the way, I think we have a new box of for the plastic Questoris Knight, and I think this is the 10th edition reboxing, which was released recently in 2023. So yep, they're just called Knight Questoris now, which is kind of cool when you think about it. And what else do I have to say about them? I mean, I don't know, man. I kind of like this box. It's an old callback to my old 2014 Knight Paladin, House Terran Knight Paladin box that I showed you. So we just came full circle, basically 2014 House Terran Knight Paladin to the Knight Warden of House Cadmus, I guess, in 2015, which was like I think like 3 years before the Knight Preceptor was released in 2018, and then we had the Knight Preceptor kit for almost 5 years before we returned to House Terran. Oh yeah, the Knight Preceptor was Canis Rex, by the way. So yeah, that was the box art. So pretty cool. Okay, so I think that's enough of Questoris Knights. Now we're gonna talk about the Cerastus class Knights. You must be wondering why I'm doing the Cerastus class next instead of the Armigers. Well, that's because the Cerastus class was the next range to be released in 2014 after the plastic kits. They're the racing kits, and they were, I guess, they were Forgeable's expansion of the Knight range, so they existed prior to the Armigers. That's why I'm doing the Cerastus Knight. So what is exactly are Cerastus? The Cerastus class? Well, they are actually a highly sophisticated chassis whose speed and agility far exceeds the Questoris pattern. The Cerastus Knights are designed solely for war instead of protectors like the Questoris chassis, and they are tools of destruction, basically, if you want to follow the Grimdark Horus Heresy Black Book's lore. Now, we return to the old version of the Lancer. So if you remember that the old 1990 White Dwarf issue 126 Lancer, that's him. He looks kind of weird actually, right? First you had the bird-shaped knight, and then you had the humanoid walking guy with normal legs, helm, and a last cannon for an arm. Unlike the others, I think you could argue that he has undergone the most transformation, with only the shock lance being preserved. But even that was altered tremendously, so it's no longer a whistle-mounted shock lance. It's an actual shock lance. I think he used to spot a last cannon and a multi-laser too, so yay for multi-lasers, I guess. But then, as you can see, these weapons are mounted on the back of the bird-like walker. Very interesting designs. Well, the Knight Lancer would receive an updated and less goofy design in January 1995 in the White Dwarf issue 181, and they are expanded upon in the issue. They are a bit taller than the Paladin and the Aaron, and like the Paladin, he's armed with a powerful battle cannon. So yeah, you see like he has two weapons. Yep, that one of them is a battle cannon. There are details about how the Lancer is built for speed, and which allows him to outflank the enemy, and he also carries a special upgraded shock lance known as a power lance, because he's a Lancer, right? So yeah. Anyway, apparently the Power Lance blasts the enemy with short range bursts of energy before it charges in for the kill. So he no longer kills with a lance, so he pokes them with his lance. We also get a command variant of the Lancer in March 1995, just like the Aaron and Paladin. And once again, he just gets a flag or standard stuck onto his back. So, yeah, that's your command variant. All you need is a flag. We also get this weird thing called the Imperial Baron, which not only has a shock lance and battle cannon, but he also has a power gauntlet. So yeah, I think he's actually the I don't think he's meant to be a lancer, more of his own thing, but I think he's the lancer is the closest thing to the Baron actually. And you'll notice that the Baron itself becomes the rank for high-ranking knight scions in the quest story is familiar. So he's no longer a unique chassis, but actually a noble household rank or Baroness if you're female. And about the power gauntlet, I was thinking that the power gauntlet is what led to the eventual, I guess, development of the, you know, ion shield gauntlet. The modern knight lancer carries. So yeah, you can see that. So power gauntlet plus the knight shield. So I'm thinking that elements of the Imperial Baron design made it to the modern Cerastus Knight. The Cerastus Knight Lancer is the first and most famous. Though they were originally one of the more uncommon pattern, this was retconned later, especially during the Adeptus Titanicus game, where they became the most common and numerous of Cerastus patterns. Because when the Adeptus Titanicus game was released in 2018, they had to sell like a bunch of plastic lances because the Knight Lancers are they kind of sold separately and they were sold on their own, rather than with the Castigators and Acherons. But yeah. They are a callback to the old Knight Lancer in the White Dwarf issue in 1990, but they revisited and redesigned that as an entirely close assault dedicated knight. First released in early 2014 with his rules in Horus Heresy Book 3 Extermination, that's May 2014 for you. And then he reappears again later in Horus Heresy 4 Conquest, November 2014. So so that's when he was released, both his rules and model. His resin model was also made available at the same time. I think unlike the Questoris Knight Starix and the Questoris Knight Margera, the Cerastus Knights are completely resin, which made them a pain to assemble. I actually used to have one resin Knight Lancer, which was had me tearing my hair out when I was trying to super glue the damn pieces together. The plastic one is much better and easier to assemble. Anyway, fielded by the Questoris familiar, the Cerastus Knight Lancer is a first strike weapon, attuned to rapid assault tactics and lethal outflanking charges. You notice a similarity in language used there with the old White Dwarf description. His potent Iron Gauntlet, again, Gauntlet, and Shock Lance are perfectly suited to battling the foe face to face, and his speed and ferocity are favored by highly aggressive scions. Apparently, the Knight houses are full of aggressive scions. Oh yeah. His shield also gives him an invulnerable save in close combat, making him unique when compared to the other Knight patterns. At least until you realize that the Knight Styrix, Knight Margera, and Knight Atropos also have invulnerable saves in close combat by virtue of their Ionic Flare shield. Well, we are talking about 8, 9, and 10 editions only. So if you are talking about Horus Heresy 2.0, they're still stuck with Ion shields and Flare shields, which means they don't have invulnerable saves in melee in Horus Heresy 2.0. But they have it in modern 40k, which is kind of weird if you think about it. Anyway, the Cerastus Knights used to be available only in resin, but in 2023 changed all of that. So the plastic kit of the Cerastus Knight Lancer was announced in April 2023 and released in summer of 2023, I think around July. This made it a lot easier and more affordable for both Horus Heresy and 10th edition players to assemble Cerastus Knight. I enjoyed the assembling process more than the resin kit that I ended up purchasing a second box just to do it all over again. I know that I should be spending so much money on knights, but yeah. Now, the second Cerastus Knight pattern is the Knight Castigator. He is armed with the fearsome Castigator pattern bolt cannon, which allows him to obliterate infantry formations in a thunderous rain of mass reactive shells and whirling power blades, or taking out light vehicles. So it's basically like the Knight Warden with the Avenger Gallant Cannon, but yeah. Like the Scions who pilot Questoris Knight Crusaders, usually warriors of pure metal pilot the Cerastus Knight Castigator to ensure they conserve their limited stock of ammunition and support their vainglorious kin. The Tempest Warblade has Deflagrate, so it's like a Warkite weapon. So if you think that's awesome, there's something that's even better about it. The Tempest rule. You think his 4 attacks, he gets 5 on the charge, aren't enough, you can then zap everybody in base contact with him on initiative 2. So there's basically a strength 10 AP2 hit on every single one of them without the need to roll. It's kind of insane. Like the Lancer and the Castigator and Akron received the plastic treatment, and I think they were sold as plastic kits in September 2023. So yeah. The next one is the Akron, the Cerastus Knight Akron, which is a terror weapon deployed for extermination missions, scoring infantry with flame from his Akron Flamestorm Cannon and toppling enemy armor and fortifications with his Reaper Chain Fist. Oh, and for more anti-infantry punch, I think he even has a twin link heavy bolter in his Reaper Chain Fist. So yeah, you can see the heavy bolter, twin heavy bolter barrels poking out there. He's also described as grim twice, so I suppose the writers and designers really want to hammer home the whole grimdark aspect. So yeah. He was first released at the same time as the Castigator, with both the Akron and Castigator getting roles in Horus Heresy for Conquest, and their resin models available in I think late 2014 if I'm not mistaken. Needless to say, he also received the plastic treatment and was sold around the same time as the Castigator in September 2023. They released at the same time, so yeah. Then we come to the Atropos, the Cerastus Knight Atropos, which is one of the rarest and most potent knights. They are designed to carry particularly rare and powerful weaponry and are dedicated to the destruction of heretic engines and Xenos war machines. Their array of exotic weaponry bring fearsome ruin upon enemy war machines, and scions who pilot these are employed as executioners of enemy knights and traitor pilots. So they are basically armed with Atropos Face Cutter or Less Cutter depending on which version of the rules you are using. I think it was depending on 10th edition or Horus Heresy 1.0 or 2.0. And a Graviton Singularity Cannon. So yeah, that's a giant gravity gun basically. Giant Grav Cannon. So haywire and all that stuff that comes to it. And if you roll a 6, I think you basically create a vortex. That was awesome. With macro extinction protocols, they can carry out anti-Titan or anti-super heavy duties. So that's their role. Engine killers. The Graviton Singularity Cannon, in particular, used to create this awesome vortex that was strength D on the roll of 6. This is back in 7th edition and Horus Heresy 1.0. So if you roll a 6 and get vortex, and you roll another 6, you guarantee a 6 plus d6 wounds or hull points worth of damage to the target with no saves of any kind allowed. Those are good times. I remember when my Atropos once took out a Warhound Titan in that manner because he dropped a Vortex round the Hound and I rolled a 6 for the wound roll. it was insane. In 2.0, Horus Heresy 2.0, they kind of nerfed the Vortex. So now the Vortex is just a Strength 10, AP1, Instant Death, and Armor Bane hit. Which still makes it really cool actually, but we no longer have the no saves allowed limits. So that's kind of sad. So I guess you can't make Primarchs disappear under Vortex now, or you can't kill a Titan in one blow. But Titans I think were nerfed in 2.0, so I don't know what to say. Unlike the other Cerastus Knight models, which were released in 2014, I think the Cerastus Knight Atropos was released later in 2016. So his resin model was first announced by Forge Roll before his rules appeared officially in Horus Heresy Retribution in February 2016. I believe Retribution is book 6, yeah, right before Inferno, book 7. Unlike the other Cerastus Knights, he doesn't have a plastic kit. Yet. We might get one this year, I have no idea. Just like this is probably what Chapter Master Varrock said, and like you said, rumors are rumors, they are lies until Games Workshop confirms them, but basically, the Mechanicum Knights like the Styrex, the Magaira, I don't know if the Atropos is included, they might get plastic kits this year. We will see. Can't say never basically. So yeah. Okay, so now we go to the Acastus Knights. The Acastus class Knights. The Acastus class was first introduced in Horus Heresy 7 Inferno in March 2017 during the Raising of Prospero. So this is the Raising of Prospero. This was where the Porphyrion made its first appearance in the lore. Acastus armors are one of the most heavily armed and armored of all knight chassis. Extremely rare, they were seen as symbols of favor by the lords of the Omnissiah's cult, and to the Mechanicum, they represent the double purpose of battlefield supremacy weapon and icon of the machine god's divinity, a symbol of control and lethal sanction. So yeah. Oh, okay. So Acastus Knights, cool. The Augustus Knight Porphyrion is armed with a pair of twin-link Magna las cannons, a pair of autocannons that can be swapped for las cannons, and they can either mount an Iron Storm missile pod or Helios defense missile pod, depending on whatever you want. Serving as the supreme enforcer of the rule and dominion of a household over its scions, they're capable of rivaling a Scout-class Titan in firepower armor. However, he completely lacks close combat weapons, which makes him vulnerable to melee attacks. But I don't think anybody cares about that because he's armed to the teeth. Even in Adeptus Titanicus, with just fielding a couple of these, a pair of them can destroy even a Warlord Titan with their Magna las cannons. I've done it before. If you guys follow my blog, you know I play Adeptus Titanicus, you know I play Knight Household armies, and you know I have a Augustus Knight with my Knight guys. So yeah, they are insane. I don't think they do just as well on 2.0. Heresy 2.0 or 10 edition though. They're kind of overcosted in those games. The size of power of the Porphyrion means that any scion who pilots him will be pushed to his utmost limits of what his single human mind can interface with. If you actually read Kingsblade by Andy Clark, that's exactly what happened to one of the antagonists who piloted the Knight Porphyrion. He went mad. So yeah, poor guy. Next one we have is the Asterius. So the Augustus Knight Asterius was released in June 2019 along with the Moirax. It was originally supposed to be expanded upon in Horus Heresy Book 10, the Black Books I mean, which would feature rules for the Dark Mechanicum and the new Knight variants such as the Asterius and the Moirax, with a lot of Grimdark lore. These are rumors by the way, but apparently in the Book 10 you're supposed to have this weird lore about the Moirax, where for example, being piloted by brains in the jars. Basically, what happened was that the pilot's brains were surgically removed and installed inside the cockpit in a floating amniotic container. And these are rumors, so I don't know how true they are. Book 10 was scrapped and never released, because the Horus Heresy would move into a new phase and be released as Edition 2.0 in 2022, along with a new Age of Darkness box set and Liber rulebooks. So instead, he just receives official rules in Liber Mechanicum, which was also published in August 2022, and I remember it being delayed in North America for some BS reason. It took about 2 months before it arrived in the US. So I remember that because I wanted to feel Mechanicum, my Mechanicum Knights, or whether my Knights in the Renegade tournament or Renegade event, and the Mechanicum, Liber Mechanicum just refused to come in time. So yeah, that was kind of that was disappointing. Anyway, the whole Grimdark brain in the jar thing was never official, so I guess it's safe to pretend that never happened. The Asterius is rarer than even the Porphyrion because his armored height is near impervious to weapons fire. He also wields a pair of twin ancient conversion beam cannons, which are irreplaceable relics of lost energy capable of sundering fortresses and laying low powerful foes in a single blast. These conversion beam cannons are powerful enough to threaten even the colossal engines of the Titan Ages. His massive carapace mounted Caragnos, I can't pronounce this weird word, Caragnos, mortar battery can annihilate entire phalanxes of troop formations or saturate ramparts with high impact explosives. While two torso-mounted Wokite culverins extinguish infantry targets. Older Knight pilots take advantage of his immense potency for annihilation, but they need strong willpower to control his machine spirit. So yeah, that's basically Augustus Knights. And now we move on to the Armigers. Why are they introduced after the Augustus Knights? Because I'm doing this in chronological order, and as I said, the Augustus Knights were released in 2017? Well, I mean the Porphyrion anyway, so yeah. So the Augustus Knights, or the Porphyrion was released in 2017. I know the Asterius was released in 2019, but yeah. The first Armiger class, the Warglaive, first appears in 2018, a year after the publication of Horus Heresy Inferno and the release of the Augustus Knight Porphyrion resin model. And the plastic resin hybrid Moirax was released in June 2019, a year after the plastic Armiger Warglaive and Armiger Halverin in the 2018 codex. So I'm doing history stuff, chronological order. Armigers are not fit. I wanted to talk about Forgebane, but I guess I don't have that in my script. Anyway, Armigers are not fitted not with Throne Mechanicum but with Helm Mechanicum, which I've already covered in my retrospective Imperial Knight video. The bondsmen who pilot Armigers are the lowest ranked nobles such as distant relatives and minor offshoots of established bloodlines or elevated commoners from household guard or planetary militia forces. Some noble houses actually maintain specialist suborders of favored retainers who are dedicated solely to piloting armigers, so that's kind of cool. During the Horus Heresy, the Armiger Knight is a lighter, more agile cousin to the Quaestorius Knight, who often fought alongside their larger confederates during the Great Crusade. Apparently, their role was to fend off infantry threats who attempt to breach the protective barriers of their iron shields to clamp explosives, such as melter bombs, directly upon their armored frames. I don't think that worked out for them though, because if you remember the new Warhammer Plus Night video, the poor Amiga Wogley went down on the Poxwalkers. So I guess they were fulfilling their role that effectively. Anyway, let's move on. The Amiga Warglaive. So first announced in the Forge Bin expansion. That's where I thought because I thought it was in my script, and yeah. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So yeah, the Amiga Warglaive was first announced in the Forge Bin expansion that was unveiled in the Las Vegas Open and finally released in March 2018. So the Las Vegas Open in 2018. Available as a single pair that supplements the Tech Priest Dominus and his Skitarii squad, which you can see here. They are pitted against a newly updated Necron Cryptek model and Mortal Squad, a bunch of Lich Guard, and 3 Wraiths. The narrative of Forgebane was one of the new plot points for 8th edition, where after the fall of Cadia and the destruction of its pylons, the Adeptus Mechanicus have been trying to harvest Blackstone. Unfortunately, the planets where the Blackstone are found turn out to be ancient tomos, and with the dormant Necrons now reawakening and clashing against the Mechanicus. So you have two empires of metal and technology embroiled in the struggle for supremacy. No, I ripped that off the Pyrrha Crusade thriller. So Amiga wargames are nimble and responsive, and they are probably based upon the drovers of the old Imperial Knight law in 1990. They are armed with a Reaper chain cleaver, unlike the Reaper chainsword that the bigger Quaestorius Knights have, and thermospheres, which is basically a miniature version of the thermocannon, as well as a carapace mounted melta gun that can be swapped for a heavy stubber if you want a bit of anti-infantry punch, instead of making him solely anti-tank or anti-heavy infantry. The lightest class of Imperial Knights, they possess exceptional speed and can outpace most battle tanks and transport vehicles. They usually hunt in packs of 2s and 3s. So yeah, I think they are designed entirely for close range combat because Melta and the Reaper chain cleaver. On the other hand, you have the Armiger Halverine, which was announced later as part of the upcoming 8th edition Imperial Knight Codex in May 2018. So about 2 months after the Warglaive. Fast-moving weapons platforms, they are designed to lay down blistering hails of heavy fire while running rings around the enemy's force. Armed with a couple of long-range Armiger autocannons, they are capable of firing hundreds of armor-piercing shells per minute. Why do I have minutes here? Per minute, I mean not per minutes. Allowing them to swiftly whittle down infantry ranks or shred lightly armored vehicles. They mostly favor carapace heavy stubbers to complement their autocannons, but some feel melta guns because I guess in case heavy infantry like Terminators get too close to them or something. Usually these pilots with a cool nerf and marksman eyes are promoted to piloting Halverines. They got a Knight Lance flanks from aircraft and light armor, and they perform escort or scout missions. During the Horus Heresy, they called the Armiger autocannons Phaeton autocannons instead. I guess someone in the Horus Heresy studio thought it was weird to call them Armiger autocannons. I kind of agree with that. I think Phaeton autocannons sound cooler. By the way, Phaeton is a forge roll. I believe Phaeton is the forge roll that kind of rebelled against Mars and sent 1/3 of their strength away, and that 1/3 of Phaeton's strength went to found a new force row that's called Artemidian. That's a story for another time, but yeah. The good news is that the Armiger pilots, commoners, and non-nobles who display great valor have a chance to enter knight households and be elevated to the rank of Scion Marshals, allowing them to pilot a Titanic or super heavy knight eventually. But yeah, they used to be sold separately, as you can see. So we had like separate boxes for Armiger Warglaives and Armiger Halverines. I had no idea why. Unfortunately, or actually fortunately, when the 9th edition Codex hit, Games Workshop finally realized how silly it was to sell them separately, and they reboxed them as a single unit that has weapon options. Yay! I think that's better. And now we're going to talk about the Armiger Knight Moirax, which is a variant of the Armiger chassis mounting the most lethal weaponry available to its class of Scout Knights. Effective in wars in which required the utter eradication of an enemy and salting of the earth of their worlds, they are available mostly to knight households indentured to the Mechanicum. Unfortunately, their cockpits are radioactive, so Armiger Moirax is actually usually piloted by the weakest noble lines and the most expendable sons. Yikes. I think that's grimdark enough without needing the whole brain in the jar thing, so I guess the authors thought it was a bit too much and drilled it in, while still maintaining some degree of grimdark. They can be equipped with an array of esoteric weapons, including Wokite Wheelglass, the one I was saying earlier that I have no idea how to pronounce. I don't know why. Wokite Chargers, Wokite Calivers, Wokite Caurins, those are easy enough. And then you have Wokite Wheelglares and Wokite Chihuahuas or whatever, I don't know. Anyway, they also have lightning locks, conversion beam cannons, and graviton pulsars. So mix and match, however you like. They are all available on. I would like to say Forge World, but they merged the Forge World with the Games Workshop website, so it's now just called Warhammer.com. They used to have armored constructs to give them a bit more durability with other Armiger classes, but that's gone now. If you're wondering what armored constructs were, they're basically weaker versions of Void Shields. So there used to be this AD12 thing that collapse after they get hit. So yeah, basically Void Shields. And you can't recover them. So yeah. For close combat, they have a Sage Claw and an inbuilt Erect Cleanser if you prefer not to give them pet range weapons. That's basically a miniature version of the Hackathon Sage Claw that's mounted on the Mechanicum Stout Knights like the Styrics and the Magaera. And now we come to Dominus Class Knights, which were first announced in May 2018. So they even had this awesome trailer with real life actors too, and a voiceover decreeing the nobility of Imperial Knights. So yeah, this is just cool.
What is it to sit upon a throne? It is to be called Lord. It is to raise the sword of war. It is to hold thunder in one's hand. It is to ride through fire. And to know that death rides with you.
So yeah, at the end you get to see the Dominus Knight and big guns. So yeah. Well, that's not the only trailer. That was just the announcement trailer. That same month, May 2018, we get the reveal trailer. So, oops. There you go, the reveal trailer.
What waits for us at the end of our time? We walk the road of swords weighed down by oaths. What strength we had is spent, and now fades, now gutters. Yet on we walk. And bear our oaths to whatever waits beyond the horizon.
So yeah, and that, my friends, was the first unveiling of the Dominus class knights. To be more precise, the Dominus Knight Castellan. So yeah, though the Castellan, I guess as you can see, the Castellans aren't actually a new thing. Before I talk about the Knight Castellans, I'm going to talk about the Dominus Knights because they are basically the newest chassis that's revealed. The Dominus Knights are each powered by two plasma cores or plasma reactors, which supplement their awesome firepower, but also mean bigger detonations when they blow up. Each also sports carapace mounted twin siege breaker cannons and shield breaker missile racks, the former laying down bombardments of heavy ordnance, and the latter dealing devastating wounds, I think, meaning it punches through invulnerable safes by disrupting and passing through enemy shields and blowing up heavy armor. Enemy knights, and even titans. They are also each equipped with a pair of twin-link melta guns, all the better to smoke both enemy armor and heavy infantry alike in close range. So it used to be 4 shots, now it's just 2 shots twin-link, rerolling wound rolls. They all can also serve as defensive bastions, overcharging their shield capacitors, to project their iron shields over nearby allies such as Imperial Guardsmen or Skitari Eye Maniples. I think they used to call this the Iron Aegis, which was a stratagem before 10th edition rode around and deleted it from existence. It should still exist in the lore though, which is kinda cool. Believe it or not though, the 2018 Imperial Knight Codex was not the first appearance of the Knight Castellan. No, they actually show up first in January 1994. Sorry, January 1995, my bad. I got the dates mixed up. I'm a failure of a historian. Uh, in White Dwarf issue 181, and this is when they first show up, and they are described as one of the heaviest types of knights produced by Forge Wolves. He bears increased armor and carries additional firepower in the form of long range quick cannon and deadly multi-barrel autocannon. So yeah, you can see that it's completely different from the modern iteration. You do see a few influences here with the quick cannon, which is usually a Titan weapon again, I guess Titan grade weapon, turning into volcano lance because I guess shadow sword. I think the auto cannon itself was changed into safe breaker cannons, but I'm not sure. So yeah, they decided to keep some part of it. It's still pretty cool though. Knight Castellan is an artillery platform that hammers the enemy from extreme range. He has a plasma decimator that bathes swaths of the battlefield in searing energies and disintegrates the enemy in superheated plasma. On the other arm is a volcano lance with massive range and stopping power, capable of beheading even an enemy titan. Apparently, if several Knight Castellans fire at once, it will be the equivalent of lance batteries of an Imperial Navy warship. So yeah, pretty cool, eh? And then you have the Knight Valiant. The Knight Valiant makes use of his armor and ion shield to march relentlessly into battle to apply overwhelming firepower at close proximity. His primary armaments are a conflagration cannon and a thundercoil harpoon, the first being 3 enormous flamers strapped together that spews forth an inescapable firestorm. The thundercoil harpoon, on the other hand, is a huge spear of adamantium fitted with pneumatic grapnels. What does pneumatic means? It just means they operate by pressurized gas and attached by thick chains to an electroatomic generator. Once the harpoon hits its target, the noble pilot can trigger his generator to send a massive electrical charge into his foe to destroy it completely from the inside out. Pretty brutal. Yeah. Oh, and like the Armiger, the Dominus Knights used to be sold separately, which was utterly ridiculous when you want to magnetize them. Fortunately, I think Games Workshop realized the errors of their ways in early 2022 and reboxed them, adding the sprue for additional weapons. Too late for me, but whatever. Fortunately, if you do want to magnetize them, you can do so now without having to purchase them separately as you had to do back in 2018, because the weapon options are all in the same box now. Yay, I'm glad they actually did that. So yeah, even though it's too late for me and yeah. Anyway, I think that's basically the history of all the different Imperial Knight chassis. I hope I'm not missing any. If I am, please let me know in the comments down below. I hope you enjoyed the article, and I think the next one will be on Mechanicum Indentured Knights during the Horus Heresy. So yeah, keep an eye out for that, I guess, next week. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.